Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get into today's episode, a couple of quick, really cool things to tell you about. First of all, congrats to Phil Lanzon, Uriah Heep's keyboardist and one of the primary songwriters, for finishing his book trilogy, The Evil with a Thousand Faces. All three books, the first two are available now. The third one is on pre-order. It will be available March 31st. Get your order in. On the website, scotthaskin.com, go to Uriah Heep Podcast, scroll down to Phil's section, and you will see links for all three books on Pegasus and Amazon UK. The first two books are available on Amazon US. I am waiting for that link for the third one to show up, but get your order in. That is a huge undertaking, so seriously, well done, Phil. Also, I told you guys about this on the first couple of episodes. Go to Elke's website. That is in the show notes and on my website as well. And go check out her picture. She's done a beautiful picture that spans Uriah Heep's music over the first 24 albums. There is a song to be found. A couple albums have two songs, but there is at least one song per album to be found. The answers are on her website, as well as the full picture and some zoomed in things. And she will also give you hints. So it's a very cool thing. It's a lot of fun to see if you can figure out what pictures represent what songs. And it was a great painting by Elke. So go and check that out. And now, today's episode. Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week, we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am here with another song from the album Livin' the Dream. And boy, we certainly are. You know, I was thinking about this earlier today, and there's a concept from a movie called Drumline that came to mind thinking about this album. You know, one band, one sound. And this album really kind of has one sound to it. And everyone's just so collective and putting their part onto it. But as a whole, the album itself has a sound to it that's very cohesive. I really, really dig it. Now, before we get into today's song, which we have two versions of, because again, I'm working off of the deluxe edition of Livin' the Dream, the CD DVD combo, and there are two versions of Take Away My Soul. And there are a couple of differences that we're going to get into. It's a little bit shorter, it's a little bit of an edit, but we also get kind of a weird bonus. It is, but it isn't. Anyway, we'll get there. I want to talk about, before we get into anything else, are people that have helped us make this show what it is. You know, first of all, Cakewalk by BandLab, that is the software I use to record, edit the podcast. Isotopes RX, which one am I using? RX4 Advanced, I'm using to clean all the clicks out of the show that happen, you know, a little bit of static and digital stuff and whatever clicks get in there. So I take those out through that. Also Podbean, who I distribute the podcast through, and Audionamics is, that's kind of fun to say, actually. Instant Dialogue Cleaner, or IDC, which I use to clean up all the background noise, you know, air, hiss, airplanes, children, dogs, all those things that could get in there. Just a little twist of the dial and just run that process. Gets me through all of that. It is the longest process that I run in the course of the podcast, but the algorithm behind it is huge, and it does so much that I don't mind. You know, I'll go make some deviled eggs or something while that's running. But all these amazing tools are what I use to make the podcast happen. And then Podbean, of course, distributes it to all the places, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon, all those places, wherever you're listening. And you can also stream the show from my website. If you go to scotthaskin.com, hit the Uriah Heep podcast link, there is a player that plays, I think it's the most recent 20 episodes. But then if you scroll down, I've got all of the seasons broken down by album. And then if you click on that, there is an individual player for each and every song. So you can quickly find whatever you're looking for, as long as you know what album it's on. If you don't, a quick Google search can give you that. And you're off to listening to another episode of the podcast on whichever song that you choose to listen to. So yeah, there have been some great people that have helped along the way. Scott Lazinski, who did the graphics for the show, amazing work. A year and a half in, the show's coming to an end, and I still, to this day, love the artwork as much as I did when I saw it the first time. He gave me, I think it was 5 different, completely different and wonderful ideas. All of them were wonderful. And I chose this one, and I think I chose wisely, to quote from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And Dave White, who is Uriah Heep's director of social media, he has been a tremendous help to the show. He's been a guest a bunch of times. We email and chat here and there, and he is a great guy. He shares the show on both Twitter and Facebook, and he runs the website uriah-heep.com as well as mick-box.net. Hundreds and hundreds of pages of great information on both Mick and Uriah Heep. The guy's just an endless source of energy and a hell of a guitar player. On top of that, very creative and a good keyboard player too. Really great guy. I'm been very lucky to work with these guys throughout the course of the last year and a half working on the show. And Dave has just been very welcoming and a highlight of this journey, I have to say. There are also people who share the show, and I want to thank all of you guys because you're the ones that help get the word out and help people that like Uriah Heep or are curious about Uriah Heep discover the show. And it's funny because, when we have different, podcasts join the Deep Dive Podcast Network, it's like I always wanted to get into Heep, and here's a good reason to do it. So please continue to share that podcast link and just let people know the show's out there. 500,000 followers on Spotify. Not all of them are listening to the show. So let's help get the word out there to everyone. And the podcast is on Spotify. Find it. It's right there. So there's some other people that I want to thank. I want to thank my fantastic patrons who have hung in here with the show. Some of them since almost the very beginning. We have at the $5 Easy Living tier, Kenny Wymore and Brad D. At the $3 The Wizard tier, Peter Voss, Goran Eriksson, Frank Thielgaard Mortensen, and William Rose. And at the $1 Traveler in Time tier, even better than those government canisters in Return of the Living Dead, Airtight Gravesite. Thank you all very, very much. If you would like to become a patron, I know it's weird because we're winding down, but the cost of the show will continue until the end of time or my estate stops paying them. You can go to the website again, scotthaskin.com, click the Uriah Heep podcast link, go all the way to the bottom. There are links for Patreon and there are links for donations through PayPal. You can do a one-time donation or you can set up a reoccurring as well, whatever you like. And thank you guys all for that. Thank you for those who have left reviews, whether I've enjoyed them or not. Not all have been 5 stars, although the vast majority have. I think there's only 2 that have not been 5 stars. One was 4 and one was 3. The one that was 3 was a horrendous review and gave me 3 stars anyway. I don't understand people. But thank you all for doing that. Every hit on that, every number, every time that goes up is a chance that more people will see it. So thank you all, for your feedback. I really appreciate it. And of course, we have to thank my brothers of the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Still no sisters. No female run I guess it would be female run podcast, because we could have a male group doing a female band podcast, and that would still be considered my brothers because it's about who's running the show, right? So my brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network, Nate and John at the Deep Purple Podcast, The Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered. We have Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts on the Other Side, Rye at Sabbath of Bloody Podcast, Paul, Joe, and David at In the Lap of the Pods, Andy and Matt at Hawk Binge, Eric and Jonathan at Maiden A to Z Pod, Daniel and Josh at Diary of the Madmen, the ultimate Aussie podcast, Ben and Sam at Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast, George and Tom at the Metal Gods podcast, and last but not least, our newest addition, Mark and Corey at the And the Podcast Will Rock, which is all about Van Halen. All of you guys are awesome. Love all of your shows. It's such a crazy journey working with these guys. So much support and so much knowledge and experience and talent. It's really amazing. So any of those bands that you're interested in, whether it be Van Halen, Judas Priest, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Ozzy Osbourne, Iron Maiden, Hawkwind, Queen, Ozzy Osbourne, and Black Sabbath, and then Leonard Skinner, the first few albums, and then of course Deep Purple. Check out any of these podcasts, guys. They're all absolutely wonderful. A couple others I want to talk about. Of course, my friend Brandon over at Metallicast, who does a wonderful job on the only Metallica podcast I listen to. Also, Ace on Music has his show on Stitcher and YouTube, Ace the Music Man. He does a lot of interesting stuff, deep dives into different parts of the industry and all things that you would never think about. And I've learned so much from that show. And I thought, I had a pretty good understanding of the music business. But now I say nay, because Ace has taught me a ton. And also GottaHear'Em.all.com, a website based on the live and touring histories of Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Emerson, Lake and Powell, all incarnates. And great information over there. Really, really knowledgeable website, I have to say. So check out all that stuff, guys. Wonderful stuff all the way around. Now, we have 2 versions of this song to get into, so let's do it. Here it is, Take Away My Soul, the album version by Uriah Heep. This is such a great build right off the top. I love that the riff that we hear is kind of chunky. It stops when you don't think it would stop, and you think it's going to go on again. But as soon as the drums come in, it changes to a whole different thing, and that's really cool. The drums sound fantastic. The toms are really just big and bright and in your face. Then we get that wonderful organ swell coming in from Phil. Obviously we're in for a treat here.
Take away my soul.
So we're hearing a lot of this layered vocal on this album, and I still don't know if that's all Bernie or if some of the other guys are joining him on this. I mean, I know that they all sing, so but it's interesting because it really does sound like Bernie's voice, but it could be a blend of some other people. But I love the sound of it, and it's very consistent throughout this album. I mean, I know we're only on song 3, but so far between the 3 songs that we've heard, that volume, that blend, it's been very, very consistent, and I love it. Sounds great. And then I like that he's doing that last bit solo. And then we've got a great fill from Russell coming into the next section.
We make the same mistakes, but some they take much longer. You like to show them to the world. It's just a photograph, a shot of space and time. I put my trust in you, but now I can't go on. Take away my soul. See the look upon my face. That's forever.
I love that the music drops down a little bit during the verse because the vocals aren't as powerful. So if the vocals were to drop down to only one singer and then the music stays the same, then that vocal is going to sound really weak, right? So I love that they backed off on the music so that the vocal would fall in line and sound powerful on its own and not get drowned out by the heavier music. Then in the chorus here, we've got Russell returning to using the crash cymbal as a ride, but it does not at all infringe on anything else. You get the effect of it, which I think is fantastic. It's like right at the perfect balance that you get the effect of it, the feel of it, the sound of it without it overpowering any other instruments. I mean, this is such a fantastic mix. Probably one of their best. I would say this particular song, because you have a lot of dynamics going on here that they're using to support and make sure that you can hear everything. It's very well crafted.
Losing all control, trying not to fall from grace. That's forever. If you could only know how this makes me feel.
Yeah, this is really good. I love coming out of that tom section back into the vocals, just the way that that picked up. That felt really good. It feels kind of triumphant in a way, just the sound of that. It's uplifting, as is a theme on this album. And I really like that. And then I like the transition here as we're, dropping it down to half the beat, but at the same tempo. There's just so many good things packed into this. The overall feel, though, is like I just feel kind of empowered when I listen to it. Vocals, especially with the additional backing vocals, just sound so good right there. There's a synth. I don't know if you're hearing it or not. It's very faint in the background, but it's just a synth that started before those vocals came in, just going da 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 da. Really simple. And then that carries on through behind the vocals there, but it's very faint. It's not up front as it could be, and then dropping it down when the vocals come in. They just left it in the background, and then you've got some really nice fill-ins from Davey Rimmer there that really keep that energy up in the slower part. It's a little tricky to do sometimes because you can easily overplay it and then it doesn't make sense or it doesn't feel like it fits in, almost like a solo. But no, he stays right on it and keeps it right in balance with the rest of the song. It's very well done. Okay, that was a badass organ solo from Phil Lanzon, wasn't it? Full of energy. His fingers are quick, and he really belted something out there that I really liked. I do love a good organ solo, and this one was just fantastic. And again, I say this about Mick all the time about how whether Mick plays fast or not, he understands the context of the song, and Phil does too. He really knows how to branch out, but also at the same point, just stay in touch with the song, even, when he's playing like this. Absolutely wonderful.
We make the same mistakes, but some they take much longer. You like to show to the world. It's just a photograph, a shot of space and time. My trust in you, but now I can't go on.
See, another unexpected move. You would not see a stop coming here. I mean, you're building up. You normally wouldn't build up to a stop, but they have pulled it off quite nicely. And I love that bass note as he moves his finger down the fretboard. I just love that sound. It's such a gritty, deep bass. Sounds great.
Take away my soul. See the look upon my face. That's forever. Losing all control. Trying not to fall from grace. That's forever.
you guys know the rule on this show. If you've been listening for a while, the rule is that you do not interrupt a Mick solo, even if it's 2 minutes long. I don't think I've let a song play that long in the entirety of this podcast, but where was I going to stop? I'm not going to interrupt Mick and say, hey, I'm just going to cut in here and into the middle of your solo while you're on fire and just start talking about how great your solo is when it's not done yet. Of course I wouldn't do that. No, that was great. A good almost 2 minutes of that, and very energetic from the beginning to the end. There was a couple parts I'm wondering if they were planned though, because you had parts where Russell just started playing right with Mick and on his accents, and I thought that was pretty cool. There's some great stuff from Dave Rimmer on bass there, where he's just going up and upper into the register and putting some nice change in the overall atmosphere of the song. Because if you're just playing a riff over and over and over, even if there's a solo on top of it, that background can get kind of repetitive. So I always love that the bass players in Uriah Heep often choose to be adventurous during a solo. They're not afraid to, come in and step into the foreground a little bit while Mick is playing, because it doesn't intrude on the solo at all, but it just gives us a more interesting background to support Mick's playing. So I've always appreciated that from, I think pretty much every Heat bass player has done that at one point or another. And that's really cool. But man, what a powerful solo, powerful backing too. The drums, especially at the end, again, going back to that tom pattern, really nice, really powerful. Just this whole song full of energy. Even the slower parts, like I just feel a good energy in them. It's almost like I'm filling in the beats that aren't there, because that's what the song is telling me to do. And that is pretty cool. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the studio version of the song, because now we are going to get into the alternate version of the song, which is really an edited down version, but there's a couple of interesting points in the song. The first one is that the guitar solo actually comes in much earlier. And so I think it was just a cut and paste thing, probably, where they, moved a chunk of the song over, made room, put Mick's solo in earlier, and then, had it go the rest of the way, because the regular song is far shorter. So it's, aside from it being an edited down version, it's slightly rearranged, I think. So let's take a listen to where Mick's solo is in the alternate version. So obviously it's chopped down a little bit because it's not that full, couple minutes solo that we heard in the regular album version. But it's also placed right after the keyboard solo, which before that they went right to this part where it really backs off, and there's just the 16th notes and the hi-hat and that. So interesting placement for it. I think that would have worked though if the main song had been released that way and there was a guitar solo right after the organ solo. I think that would have worked fine. But I kind of like that they just let, Mick, the rest of the song is yours. We'll back you up. Let us know when you're ready to end it, and we'll put the ending in, but we're just going to keep playing as long as you want, is really what the vibe feels like, because that's a very, very long guitar solo to not have something else over it, like, a chorus coming back in, or a few words for the singer, or maybe the singer just kind of riffing on their own above that. But yeah, it works really well. But I think that this format would have worked also. So the other changes in the end, again, completely different, because we moved the guitar solo. This is more of I guess would be like a radio friendly version, although, it is 4.5 minutes. So probably not so much. Of course, these days, it's not like it used to be where you would only get 3-minute songs on the radio. Everything's changed now. And thinking about playlists on Spotify versus, a terrestrial radio station actually playing songs with commercial breaks and all that, everything has changed so much now. So I don't think that it's really necessary to cut down a song to its bare bones to get it on a playlist or something these days. It doesn't work that way anymore. But maybe it still does in terrestrial radio. I don't know, because they still have advertisers and getting X amount of songs in per hour and all that they have to deal with. But in any case, the ending is a little bit different here. So I'm going to play that for you now.
Losing all control, trying not to fall from grace. That's forever.
So since the solo was shortened and moved to an earlier location, now we just have the chorus going into the end, returning to that same ending that we had in the original song. It's just, instead of it coming out of the guitar solo, it's coming out of the chorus part. So a couple of major differences for this one. Very interesting choices. I think it works very well, actually. Just a different choice. And, these are the kind of things that when you're writing the song, those are decisions that you have to make. Where are we going to put this? How are we going to end it? Do we want to put this before that? And you're making the arrangement of the song as you write it, and then as you're rehearsing it, and people come up with different ideas. It's a whole developmental process. But once the song is done, and I wouldn't have thought that this was so seamlessly possible before, until I was challenged with doing it myself, where you actually take two parts of the song and you have to crossfade them so that you don't notice that you're changing the parts. So basically, like you overlap them, and so that both parts play on top of each other, but then you do this thing that's called a crossfade, where you're fading one part out and another part in, but it's so abrupt that you're not getting the music from either one of them on top of the other. And it's really tricky to do because you have to line up the timing of it first, right? The beat all of a sudden can't be in a different spot. You have to be able to tap consistently like a metronome for the song to continue to work, unless you're specifically going for that effect, which I don't know why you would do that. But in any case, I was challenged. I was mixing an album, and the artist contacted me and said, "Hey, can you take out this section of the song?" And I thought, no, probably not. And of course, me being the person I am, I said, well, let me see what I can do with it. And I had never done crossfades before, except live. Live, it's easy to do certain things if you're introducing, like, you have background music to introduce the band, stuff like that, or crossfading into the music that's going to play while they're in between sets to keep the people entertained. Of course, it's at a much lower volume, so that's a little trickier. But I started playing with it, and, first I just lined it up. And then I just started moving the fade up and the fade down on the two different spots. And it's actually not that hard. I just wouldn't have thought it would be because of bleed over and things like that, especially, if you hit a crash cymbal before the beat, then it would normally carry over into the next section. But somehow it works with those crossfades. So it would be really easy, in thinking back to some of the other alternative versions that we've listened to over the course of the show, when they're copying or when they're chopping that down, that's pretty much what they're doing, although it was done differently back in the old days. But as the remasters came out, digital crossfading was already a well-established thing. So it's not as hard as I thought it would be, and it's actually kind of fun and challenging to get it just right sometimes. But that's part of the fun of being an audio engineer, I suppose. But I think that the alternate version was cool. I think that the song, for some people might be too long because attention spans are just not quite what they used to be, at least among people that I know, and that includes me. But I actually did engage fully with the 6-minute version, and I honestly could have used more of it. It was so energetic and so pumped up. I think it would have been nice if at the end, had they chosen to go this way, maybe this is something that they might do live, but go back from the guitar solo, then back to an organ solo, back to a guitar solo, and just kind of do like a little bit of a duel or something there. As long as that energy is kept up, you could do all kinds of things and keep this song going for half an hour if you wanted to. That might be a bit much for most listeners, but something that you certainly could do as far as the creative side of it and just keeping the energy up. It's not that difficult, but it's a fun song. I think after a while you just tire of playing solos over that backing riff. I think that would get a little monotonous. So maybe, another 30 seconds or so, if you're going to cut down some of the guitar solo and trade off with keyboards, could be a thing. Could be something you do live. But in any case, it's a fun song. It's really a great energetic. And I'm all pumped up now. You can probably hear that in my voice. Or at least I think you can hear that in my voice. But it's a great song, a great journey, and a hell of a way to kick off our week. It's Monday, guys. I hope that you have a fantastic day. I know people tend to dread Mondays. It's partially because the weekend is over, and it's partially because they got to get back into that work mode again. And, I get it. I've done the Monday through Friday thing for years, whether it's been Monday through Friday, Sunday through Thursday, graveyards, whatever it is, you have it. I've worked pretty much all the different types of schedules, and they all suck. So I get the idea of that dread. But at least you have something to carry you into the Monday and get you all pumped up to get through it. And of course, tomorrow is Tuesday and we're going to have another song for you. So you guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!